Hey guys, it is me again, it's Rachel, and this week Jen came up with a rota based on some of the things she's going through right now, but also, we are trying to shift it up a bit because obviously quite a lot of different things have been talked about over the years, and this has been going since God knows when. I mean, I joined the channel, in 2008? So you're talking kind of 5 years, good 5 years or so. And this week she wanted us to talk about dealing with, I guess, a friend or someone close to you who could be a relative or what have you. You could be, I don't know, you could be a teacher, you could be a mother, you could be a father, you could be an aunt, you could be a cousin, you could be a sister, you could be a brother, you could be any of those things. So it's somebody who you're attached to, either incredibly close to or know of or know about, but don't necessarily have, they're your friend. So I'm having a lot of trouble breathing. Having your friendship, but it might be a more sort of distant friendship. There's two approaches that I take when dealing with this sort of thing. The very hard part of me, the emotional side of me, the fearful side of me, the anxious side of me tends to be incredibly confrontational when it comes to an eating disorder, especially if somebody is close to me. They tend to get a regular bollocking from me, and I certainly push people, and sometimes, and I truly believe this, that's what a person needs. That person needs to be constantly challenged, and maybe that's just because that's how my recovery was and my therapy was, and it worked for me, but some people don't respond completely to that way. But I think there has to be a degree of boundaries, and there has to be a degree of saying, I'm finding this really, really difficult and I need you to work with me with this. I've broken friendships because one of the things that I find very, very difficult in a friendship is if a person is not only on self-destruct, but if I'm their friend, then either seek the help or seek support from somewhere else, another friend, or try and let me in a little bit, because it's incredibly difficult to just sit back and watch somebody destroy themselves. And I did that many a time when I was in recovery, and I'm at the point now whereby I'm very limited in who I'm in contact with regards to eating disorder. I have one close friend who's just got out of hospital, and that's pretty much it. I know people sort of through people who have these difficulties, and I refuse to let them give up. If it means me kicking their ass every single day, and I will remind them that they need support, I will remind them that they have to do this, that only they can do this. And as much as that person may hate me at times for that, I recently had a tete-a-tete with somebody who I was challenging, and it didn't go down well at all, and I feel bad about that. But I also know that I was doing her justice and myself justice, because on reflection, as a friend, you need to be honest and you need to be raw. Of course, depending on friendships, you might find that, at least I find this, I'm not the type of person who can't confront people, but I do recognise that sometimes that person just needs to have someone to hang out with. If I go and visit a friend in hospital who's now not there, sometimes she just wants to hang out. She doesn't want to be asked 1,000 million questions. But it's like a person with cancer. You might just go and hang out with them and just let them have a moment out of themselves. But you also need to talk about the problem. There's a big pink elephant in the room. You can't just ignore it. The amount of people, I'm so sorry, my chat. The amount of people who I know whose family or friends completely avoid the issue, just completely leave it. I just can't do that. Maybe that's just the nature of me. Maybe it's because how my recovery was. Maybe it was, as much as people might say, like, my family are easy on me, they are so not. I am like they are so hard on me, but it's my illness that they're hard on, and I don't get away with shit. And I guess being at home has kept me able to recover without using behaviours, and the recovery that I've achieved in my eating disorder certainly is there by having a supportive environment around me, and people who eat normally around me and such. Whereas living independently, I could maybe sort of slip back, and especially when my depression's there. So if you've got somebody who perhaps is being told they will never recover, as we hear this all the time, don't we? Just put my magazines there. We hear all the time that recovery doesn't exist, you're not going to recover. One of the stupidest things I heard recently was that have a baby and it'll like make you better, and I was just like, oh my god. And what I will say is that no, I might not have been the sickest person that's ever been with an eating disorder, and there will be those who haven't been as sick as me, but an eating disorder is an eating disorder. Whether you weigh 70 pounds, 100 pounds, 130 pounds, 150 pounds, 180 pounds, 200 pounds, onwards, an eating disorder is an eating disorder. And you can have somebody of 200 pounds who is anorexic, and just because they don't meet the criteria, they have to all start somewhere. We all start somewhere. So if you've got somebody who's decayed so far down that you're finding it very, very difficult, my main advice would be to emotionally detach yourself a little bit. Not so that you can't talk to them, not so you can't be a friend to them, but bring some of those issues up. Bring up, you know, how is your health? How are things going while you're on the ward? How do you feel about this? But then also bring some sort of playfulness into it, some fun, because, you know, when I've been in hospital, I've not always wanted to have to talk about that. I've been quite happy to be distracted, to be honest, to take me out of myself for like half an hour or something. And in terms of giving your friend or whoever advice, just bit by bit. I think that it's very easy to overwhelm people. I think it's very easy to throw a load of information at somebody and just say, here we go. I tend to do it in bouts. I've got huge amounts of paperwork which I happily share with other people if that's where they feel that they're at. And I do think they have a lot thrown at you at once, so it can be incredibly overwhelming and kind of push you away from it. So what I did when my friend was in hospital is I tried to visit her every week and just kind of be continuous, like show some continuity. And I think that when people are recovering, that's one of the most important things to do. The last thing they need to be worrying about is that someone's going to leave them or someone's not going to come back, even if that is what they're worried about. So show continuity. And the way I feel about this is if you make a commitment to support somebody through something, you might as well support them all the way through it. There is no point in starting out supporting someone and then like being like, oh, too much, kicking out. Now it's different if their issues are becoming just too much emotionally for you and draining of you and compromising your health. But the way to deal with that is, again, to sit down with that person or to even write to them and just say, I love you, I want to be here for you, but right now, like, I'm barely coping with myself, and please just know that just because I'm not seeing you, just because I'm not phoning you, doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I need some space right now. And that's the reality of illness. That isn't because somebody's the person recovering is a failure or the friend is a failure. It's just a reality of how we keep ourselves together. Mothers and fathers of people with an eating disorder who may watch this, you know, you're allowed a break. You're allowed a period of time where you can let go of it and just kind of have something for yourself. And I think that that's incredibly important when you're dealing with somebody, especially whose prognosis isn't particularly great. But I will always harbour the belief and always trust that recovery is possible. You can achieve full recovery, and that if you have stuff around you, people around you, use them to talk to, use them to support you, use them to meet up with, to just be there, and realise that your physical presence doesn't always have to be there, but that you may not speak for a few weeks because you want to just have some time for yourself, but that it's a not speaking to one another because you're respecting each other's time. I quite often cut off, much to their annoyance, a lot of my friends when I start to really struggle, because I know that that's when arguments can happen. I know that when somebody starts to really struggle, a kind of side to them takes over, and it can be very, well, it can cause a lot of conflict. So don't isolate that person, but do recognise your own limits, and do kind of feel okay about what you actually can do for them, not what you feel you should be doing. Alright guys, I hope that's been of some help, and if you've got any questions you can email me and also leave messages at the bottom. Bye!